In the village of Akenji, deep in the green heart of West Africa, life moved to the slow, steady rhythm of the seasons. Mud-walled compounds with thatched roofs clustered around a wide central square where the ancient baobab tree stood like a silent sentinel. Its massive trunk, wider than 10 men standing shoulder to shoulder, bore scars from generations of children who had climbed its branches and lovers who had carved their names into the bark. Smoke from cooking fires drifted upward each evening, carrying the scent of roasting yam, smoked fish, and palm oil. Talking drums answered one another across the hills, telling stories of ancestors, harvests, and warnings. The villagers of Akenji knew many tales, of hidden kingdoms swallowed by time, of gold buried beneath forgotten altars, of spirits that guarded their treasures with terrible jealousy. Most listened to these stories with a mixture of awe and caution. But three young men listened differently. Adam was the tallest, broad-shouldered and powerful, his arms roped with muscle from years of climbing cliffs and wrestling crocodiles. His skin gleamed dark as polished ebony, crisscrossed with old scars that he wore like medals. He spoke little, but when he did, his deep voice carried authority. Mustafa was leaner, sharper, always thinking 3 steps ahead. His eyes missed nothing. He could read a trail in broken twigs or decipher an ancient map faded by centuries. Yusuf, the youngest, moved with the restless grace of a leopard. Quick to laugh, quicker to anger, he carried a mischievous grin that could charm or deceive in equal measure. Together they were legendary. For 5 years they had hunted treasures across the length and breadth of the continent. They had descended into the half-buried tombs of Nubian kings beneath the blistering Sudanese sun, where sandstorms tried to entomb them alive, and scorpions the size of fists scuttled across their sleeping mats. They had hacked through the steaming rainforests of Cameroon, dodging poison-tipped arrows from hidden pygmy sentinels and wrestling pythons thicker than a man's waist. They had dived into flooded coastal caves along the Ivory Coast, surfacing with sacks of black pearls while crocodiles snapped at their heels. They had crossed the ghost cities of Namibia, where the wind howled through ruins and mirages teased them with visions of water that vanished when they reached out. Each time they returned richer, golden masks, emerald-encrusted daggers, ruby crowns, ivory carved with scenes of forgotten wars. They were brave, they were daring, they were unstoppable. And they were greedy. The first cracks had appeared after their raid on the tomb of the forgotten pharaoh. They sat around a fire that night, sacks of gold scarabs and amulets glittering in the firelight. Adam lifted the largest emerald, turning it so the green fire danced inside. "This one is mine," he said simply. "I held the roof when it started to collapse." Mustafa's eyes narrowed. "And who read the map that brought us here? Without me, you'd still be wandering in circles." Yusuf, smiling, slipped 3 extra scarabs into his pocket while they argued. When Mustafa noticed, he lunged. Adam stepped between them. Fists flew. Blood spattered the sand. They separated that night, bruised and furious, swearing never to speak again. 2 weeks later, a rumor of diamonds in the Congo basin reached them. They met again at the edge of the village, eyes wary, but the promise of wealth was stronger than pride. They went together, fought together, bled together, and returned richer than before. The pattern repeated. After the Ethiopian highlands, where they dodged swinging blade traps and hyena packs to claim golden chalices, Yusuf tried to slip away at dawn with the best pieces. Adam and Mustafa hunted him down through the mountains. They caught him at a river crossing. Words became insults, insults became blows. A knife flashed, Adam's arm bled freely. They left him tied to a tree until he swore to share fairly. He swore. They untied him. They moved on. In the Zambian rapids, they nearly drowned retrieving sapphire orbs from beneath a waterfall. Mustafa saved Yusuf from the undertow. Yusuf pulled Adam from jagged rocks. Gratitude lasted until they reached dry land. Then Mustafa accused Adam of hiding 2 orbs in his pack. Adam denied it. Yusuf sided with Mustafa for once. They fought on the riverbank until all 3 were bloody and exhausted. They divided the sapphires unevenly, each convinced the others had cheated. Yet every time a new rumor reached Akenji of a lost city, a sunken galleon, a cursed vault, the three found their way back to one another. Greed was the glue that held their brotherhood together, even as it slowly tore it apart. One humid evening they sat in the village inn, a low-roofed shelter of palm mats and mud bricks. Palm wine flowed freely from large calabashes. The sweet, sour liquid burned their throats and loosened their tongues. They laughed loudly, recounting old exploits, exaggerating dangers they had already survived. The door opened. An old man entered, leaning heavily on a carved staff. His kente cloth was faded, patched in many places. His face was a map of deep wrinkles. His eyes, though clouded, still held a sharp light. He settled near the fire. The inn grew quiet as he began to speak. "I have walked far," he said, voice dry as old leaves. "I have seen things most men only dream of, and I have heard of a treasure greater than any you have taken." The three leaned forward. "At the heart of the great Black Mountain," the old man continued, "lies a chamber no man has claimed and lived to tell of. Gold piled higher than a tall man can reach. Diamonds that catch the sun and throw rainbows across stone walls. Jewels the color of blood in sea and forest. But the mountain guards its own. The road is long and cruel. First the jungle of fangs, where serpents burn and beasts walk on two legs. Then the tempest sea, where waves rise like mountains and voices call from the deep. Then the red desert, where the sun cooks a man's brain and the night brings venomous death. Only then do you reach the foot of the Black Peak." Adam's eyes gleamed. Mustafa's fingers twitched toward the map pouch at his belt. Yusuf licked his lips. "Show us," Adam said. The old man studied them for a long moment. Then he drew a folded parchment from inside his robe. The map was ancient, edges frayed, ink faded but still legible, rivers, mountains, symbols of danger. "For a jug of palm wine," he said. They bought him 3. Later, in their hidden lair deep in the forest, they spread the map across a low table. The lair was a thief's dream. Walls hung with golden masks from Mali, shelves lined with ivory tusks etched with battle scenes, beaded curtains from Zulu royalty shimmering in the lantern light. Chests overflowed with coins, scarabs, amulets, daggers. The air smelled of metal, old leather, and dust. Mustafa traced a route with his finger. "This path cuts through the jungle here, saves 3 days." Yusuf snorted. "And runs straight into the swamp of 1,000 crocodiles. Look at the markings. We go west, follow the river." Adam folded his arms. "The river floods this time of year. We lose the raft and everything. Jungle is hard, but it's solid ground." Mustafa shook his head. "You're thinking with your muscles again. Speed matters. We take the western ridge." They argued for hours, voices rising, fingers stabbing the map. Accusations flew. "You always want the easy way. You want to die slow. You're both fools." In the end, exhaustion forced compromise. They would take a hybrid route, jungle to river, river to coast, then desert. They packed with care. Old but reliable rifles cleaned and oiled. Machetes sharpened until they could shave with them. Torchlights with spare batteries. Climbing ropes coiled neatly, iron hooks gleaming. Food, dried meat, ground nuts, smoked fish, hard yams, packets of dried fruit enough for a month if rationed. Water gourds, medicine pouches, spare boots. They left at first light, the village still sleeping behind them. The jungle of fangs swallowed them on the second day. Trees towered so high the sky became a distant memory. Vines hung like nooses. The air was wet, thick, alive with the drone of insects and the cries of unseen birds. The ground squelched underfoot. Every step released the smell of rot and green life. On the third afternoon, a fiery serpent struck without warning, scales the color of burning coals, eyes like hot coals. It lunged at Yusuf's leg. He twisted away, fangs grazed his calf, venom sizzling on skin. He screamed. Adam fired, the shot echoed like thunder. The snake writhed, struck again. Mustafa hacked its head off with 2 swings. Yusuf collapsed, legs swelling black and purple. They cut the wound, sucked the poison, bound it with leaves and cloth. He limped for days, cursing every step. Night brought worse horrors. Creatures that were neither lion nor serpent stalked their camp, bodies scaled, heads maned, eyes glowing red. They moved in a pack, hissing roars that shook leaves from branches. One leaped onto Mustafa, claws tearing his shoulder. Blood sprayed. Adam fired into its chest. It roared and fell back. Yusuf lit torches, swinging them in wide arcs. Flames reflected in dozens of eyes. Another beast seized Adam's leg, dragging him toward the darkness. He stabbed its throat. Hot blood poured over his hands. The fight lasted until dawn. When the last creature fled, the three stood panting, clothes shredded, bodies marked with fresh wounds. They had survived, but barely. Deeper in the jungle, an overgrown anaconda ambushed them at a river crossing. It rose from the brown water like a living tree trunk, coils wrapping all three at once. Adam's rifle sank into the mud. Yusuf's machete pinned uselessly against his side. The snake squeezed. Ribs creaked. Breath hissed out in thin gasps. Mustafa freed one arm, grabbed a low vine, pulled with everything he had. Adam smashed his forehead against the beast's scales, stunning it. Yusuf sank his teeth into its flesh, tearing. Blood bitter hot filled his mouth. Slowly, agonizingly, they pried themselves free. They hacked the snake into pieces, dragged themselves to shore, and lay there for hours, shaking. They lost count of the days. Fire ants swarmed once, burning skin like hot coals. Poisonous thorns left them feverish and hallucinating, visions of gold coins raining down, then turning into scorpions. Quicksand pits opened without warning. Ropes saved them more than once. Yet every time death reached for them, the thought of the mountain's treasure pulled them forward. At last the trees thinned. The jungle spat them out onto a wide, empty beach. Ahead lay the sea. The water was slate-gray and restless, waves smashing against black rocks. No man in living memory had crossed it and returned. They felled heavy logs with machetes, lashed them with vines and ropes, built a crude raft 20 feet long. A scrap of sailcloth caught whatever wind they could find. They launched at dawn. For the first hours the sea was almost gentle. Then the tempest came. Wind screamed. Waves rose 30 feet high, curled, crashed. The raft bucked and twisted. Logs groaned, ropes frayed. Rain lashed their faces like needles. Lightning turned night into day. Sharks arrived soon after. Fins cut the water in circles. One rammed the raft, wood splintered. Adam fired downward, blood clouded the sea. Another shark leaped, jaws wide. Yusuf swung his machete, severing its snout. The beast thrashed, nearly capsizing them. Night after night they took turns watching, stabbing at shadows beneath the surface. Then came the sirens. They rose from the foam, beautiful women with long dark hair and eyes like moonlit water. Their voices were honey and longing. "Come to us," they sang. "Rest, feast, love. Riches wait below." Mustafa stood, swaying, eyes glazed. Adam slapped him hard across the face. Yusuf stuffed rags in his ears and sang war chants to drown the song. They clung to the raft, half mad with hunger and exhaustion. Food ran out. They caught small fish with hooks fashioned from wire, ate them raw, scales and all. Rainwater collected in gourds saved them from thirst. A rogue wave flipped the raft once. They clung to broken logs, sharks circling closer. Yusuf spotted a distant line of land. They swam, kicking against currents that tried to drag them under. Adam hauled Mustafa from a whirlpool. Mustafa pulled Yusuf from a shark's path. They crawled onto the beach at sunrise, vomiting seawater, laughing and weeping at once. The red desert waited. Red sand stretched to every horizon. The sun was a hammer. Mirages shimmered, lakes, palm trees, women dancing, then vanished. At night the temperature plunged, frost rhymed their lips. Rattlesnakes hunted after dark. The first night a nest erupted around their camp. Dozens of them, thick as wrists, rattles buzzing like dry leaves in wind. One struck Adam's boot, he crushed its head under his heel. Another bit Mustafa's hand, he screamed, cut the wound, sucked venom until his mouth went numb. Yusuf was bitten on the ankle. His leg ballooned, fever burned through him. They tied tourniquets, forced him to walk, half carrying him when he could no longer stand. Sandstorms buried them alive twice. They huddled under cloaks, breathing through cloth, waiting for the wind to die. Scorpions the size of hands crawled into their boots. They shook them out, stamped them dead. The sun cooked their brains. They saw gold statues walking toward them, then dissolving into sand. Thirst clawed their throats. They found a single barrel cactus, hacked it open, drank the bitter pulp until their stomachs cramped. One night a giant rattlesnake, thicker than a man's thigh, coiled around Mustafa while he slept. Its rattle woke them. Adam fired, the shot missed in the dark. Yusuf hacked at its body. The snake tightened, Mustafa's ribs cracked audibly. Adam jammed his machete into its eye. It released, thrashing, dying slowly. Mustafa coughed blood for days. Yet they walked, one foot in front of the other. The promise of gold kept their hearts beating. At last green appeared on the horizon. Pastures, rivers, antelope grazing, they hunted, feasted, bathed in cool water. Wounds began to close, strength returned. Then the land changed again. A vast plain of cracked, lifeless earth stretched before them. Nothing grew, no bird flew, no insect chirped. The silence was absolute. Far away at the edge of sight rose the black mountain, jagged, obsidian black, its peak lost in cloud. Legend said this land had once been forest, thick and alive. A greedy king, centuries ago, had summoned dark spirits to protect his hoard. The spirits obeyed, then turned on him, drinking the life from the soil, withering trees to stone, driving animals away. Now only the mountain remained, brooding over its dead kingdom. They crossed the barren waste in silence. Wind moaned through petrified stumps. Dust coated their tongues. At last they stood at the foot of the mountain. It was terrifying. Black rock gleamed like wet obsidian. Jagged ridges cut the sky. Every surface looked sharp enough to slice flesh. High above, an opening yawned in the peak. A cloud of bats poured out, wheeling like smoke. "That's our way in," Adam said. They roped themselves together, harnesses tight, hooks tested, ropes checked twice. The climb began. The mountain fought them from the first step. Loose rocks tumbled, striking helmets, bruising shoulders. Bats swarmed, biting faces, tangling in hair. Winds howled, trying to peel them off the rock. The mountain itself seemed to shake, deep tremors that loosened handholds. Adam slipped once, dangling by his rope. Mustafa's arms burned holding him. Yusuf's foot found a crack. It crumbled. He swung, slamming into the wall, breath knocked out. Higher they went. Blood slicked their palms. A ledge collapsed under Mustafa. Adam hauled him up inch by inch, muscles screaming. Bats attacked in blind fury. They swung torches, burning wings, scorching fur. Near the summit, a sudden gust tore Yusuf's pack away. Food, water, spare ammunition gone. They pressed on anyway. At last they pulled themselves through the opening. Darkness swallowed them. The air was thick, sour with guano and decay. They lit torches, light danced on wet stone walls. They moved deeper, footsteps echoing. A figure stepped into the light, an old man, cloaked, frail, face hidden in shadow. "I am the guardian of this place," he said quietly. "You may not pass. You are unworthy." Adam laughed. "We've taken treasures from pharaohs, from jungle kings, from desert ghosts. We crossed oceans and deserts. We are worthy." Mustafa stepped forward. "Show us the hoard or step aside." Yusuf grinned. "We've killed bigger things than you, old man." The guardian shook his head slowly. "Greed has already claimed you. Turn back." They looked at one another. A silent agreement passed between them. Machetes flashed. The old man did not cry out. He fell, blood pooling black on the stone floor. "That's what you get," Adam muttered. They stepped over the body. The treasure chamber opened before them. Gold coins cascaded in glittering heaps 10 feet high. Diamonds caught torchlight and threw sparks of rainbow across the walls. Rubies burned like frozen blood. Emeralds glowed the green of deep forest. Golden statues, warriors, gods, lions, stood taller than any man, eyes of sapphire and onyx watching them. For a moment they were children again, speechless, breathless, innocent. Then they rushed forward. They dove into piles of gold, coins sliding around them like water. They laughed loud, wild, joyous. They swam through riches, tossed handfuls into the air, watched them rain down. They danced, holding hands, spinning in circles, shouting their triumph to the stone ceiling. "We did it," Yusuf gasped. "We really did it." Mustafa lifted a ruby the size of an egg, all ours. Adam stood atop a golden lion statue, every last piece. They spoke no plan for carrying it out. The mountain was remote, the journey back impossible with such weight. Yet each man silently vowed all of it would be his. They ate the last of their food. They slept on beds of gold coins, dreaming of palaces, ships, kingdoms. In the deepest part of the night, a thin mist rose from cracks in the floor. It curled upward, pale and cold, and slipped into their nostrils while they slept. It carried no scent, only despair. In their dreams they saw one another's faces twisted with betrayal, knives in the dark, poison in the cup, a single survivor walking away with everything. They woke changed. Suspicion sat heavy in their chests. They began to divide the treasure. Adam claimed the tallest statue, a golden warrior with sapphire eyes. "This is mine. I led us here." Mustafa pointed to another. "Then that one is mine, equal share." Yusuf laughed bitterly. "Equal? You've been skimming since the jungle. I saw you pocket extra coins." Mustafa's hand drifted toward his machete. "Liar." Adam stepped between them. "Enough, we take what we can carry." But none of them moved to pack. Instead they argued over a single pile of gold coins. Each man rushed forward, scooping handfuls, shoving the others away. "You're stealing," Yusuf shouted. "You've always stolen," Mustafa snarled. Adam drew his machete, the same blade still crusted with the Guardian's blood. "Back away." They circled one another, breathing hard. Then they rushed. Steel clashed, blood sprayed. Adam slashed Mustafa's arm to the bone. Mustafa drove his blade into Adam's side. Yusuf stabbed Adam's thigh, screaming. Adam backhanded Yusuf, breaking his nose. Mustafa hacked at Yusuf's leg. Yusuf fell, clutching the wound. They fought like animals, grunting, cursing, slipping in their own blood. One by one they staggered, strength failing. They dropped to their knees, chests heaving, life leaking out. A figure stepped from the shadows. The old man, the guardian, the storyteller from the inn. He removed his cloak. His wounds were gone, his eyes clear. He looked down at them. "Like I said," he said softly, "you were never worthy. The mountain knows a man's heart. It found your weakness, greed, and turned it against you. You destroyed each other for what was never yours to keep." He turned away. The last thing they saw was his retreating figure, fading into darkness. Their bodies lay among the gold they had coveted, eyes open, mouths frozen in silent screams. The mountain was silent once more. In the end, the tale of Adam, Mustafa, and Yusuf is a bitter lesson carved in blood and gold. Greed is a thief that wears the mask of ambition. It promises freedom, power, joy, but delivers only suspicion, betrayal, and ruin. True wealth is found in loyalty, in shared laughter around a fire, in the strength of hands clasped together against the storm. When greed takes root, it poisons every bond, blinds every virtue, and leaves a man alone with his riches and his regret. Let their fate be a warning. Chase more than you need, and you will lose everything you already have. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe and follow for more thrilling tales of adventure, danger, and hard-learned lessons.